Whoa, all right, people, we are back. Shout out basketball enthusiasts and welcome back. And the Mavs owner still isn't just getting it. Out doing press conference speaking on the situations weeks after the fans have been in an uproar. Now you finally want to come out and say something? And then you give words with no substance? Man, stick around because we are going to break this one down and make sure you're here until the end of the video because I'm pretty sure we're going to learn a lot in this one. We will be reacting.
Part of leadership is looking at risk and looking at all the factors of a decision and look to the long term and not only think about the short term. Going into the trade deadline last year, we were not competitive and we got to the championship games and we didn't win. And so we had to decide, how do we get better?
What's gone down in Dallas is truly a circus. Right now, many people are calling out one of the new Dallas Mavericks' majority owners, Patrick Dumont, as an all-time villain.
Hey man, y'all hear that accent? Let me find out. He sound like he knows some Dumont. Find out for real, man. We got an inside source.
For that shocking Luka Dončić trade. Yet when you look back, history is full of fresh owners who have messed up their team's futures, some of them in even more jaw-dropping ways. So inspired by the chaos in Dallas, let's see where it ranks amongst the NBA's worst new owners. First of all, for context, a short summary of Dallas's timeline. In late 2023, Mark Cuban, a longtime outspoken owner and the face of the Mavericks, sold a controlling 69% stake to casino moguls Miriam Adelsons, Patrick Dumont, and his wife, who also is Miriam's daughter, by the way. That alone stunned the NBA world. Cuban was so synonymous with the—
What I thought was so funny was the fact that Mark Cuban decided to sell the Mavericks, the Adelsons, but yet he was promoting the Democrats when the Adelsons are Republicans. And they have had close ties with Trump. Could this be, all right, so we just unlocked a whole new conspiracy. So Mark Cuban was Team Blue for the Democrats. The Adelsons are very close to Trump. Could the Adelsons did this to get back at the Democrats? Hey, man, it's deep. We were talking about the conspiracy, but when you start thinking about the left wing and the right wing, don't forget, they're all a part of the same bird going the same direction.
The Mavs, and while he kept the 27%, picturing anyone else at the front of the wheel just felt surreal. Then about a year into the new ownership's lead came the bombshell on February 1st, 2025. Franchise faced Luka Dončić to the LA Lakers, essentially for Anthony Davis and one first-rounder. The rest you heard by now a million
and Max
times,
Christie.
and even I covered it on this channel in multiple videos that you should watch after. A terrible return for a generational star that was made worse by a PR nightmare that followed, and injuries both AD and more importantly Kyrie Irving suffered. From NBA Finals the season prior to essentially tanking in less than a year. Any win now plans have been completely erased by a season-ending ACL injury to Kyrie. Then there's their own future picks from 2027 through 2030 that are all—
Okay, we got to have a serious conversation. It was this one guy on podcast. Okay, it was this one guy who said when the trade first went down, Max Christie was going to come in and immediately be our best defender. He lied.
And that's facts.
Yeah. PJ is still the best defender on the team. And Max Christie, man, that boy is going to be on the second squad. No shots, but I mean, you were out of line when you said that, my boy.
Practically gone. OKC, Houston, and San Antonio have the rights to swap with Dallas, and knowing how much young talent those teams have, Mavs' future looks even bleaker. It's very likely for all those teams to be contenders for the remainder of this decade, so Mavericks picks would just be swapped with some low-value ones. And to really drive the knife in, Dumont decided to jack up season ticket prices by 8% not long after the trade. Right now, the consensus is that he's treating the franchise more like a business asset than a historic with a strong fan base that needs winning. The result of that, the Mavs without their top two guys have been losing games left and right, while Dončić is thriving in Los Angeles alongside LeBron.
Not to mention, there are a lot of Dallas Mavericks supporters not even in tune to what the game, who are not even in the basketball scene right now. They completely disconnected, focusing on their lives and ways to make more money just to generate a healthier life because they've realized that the amount of energy and emotion that was being put into the Dallas Mavericks for the owners not to care how the supporters feel when it comes to trading the franchise player. So much of the foundation of the Mavericks, ever since Dirk had transitioned on, is hard to bear.
And that's facts.
On James. So, to wrap this up, Mavs new owners lost both immediate contention and the ability to pivot into a full rebuild, backstabbing their fans in the process. Yet, as bad as it looks, there was one man who arguably had even worse first few years as an NBA team owner, and that's Mikhail Mikhail Prokhorov. In 2010, he purchased 80% of what was then still the New Jersey Nets. Then he also paid for 45% of the new Brooklyn arena where the Nets relocated in 2012. Almost immediately, he tried to sign every superstar on the market: LeBron, Wade, Bosh, Carmelo, Dwight, only to swing and miss on all of them. In 2010,
Hey, how's that bad though? My boy? Hey, a miss is better than you getting into a situation and then you having to invest time, money, energy, and effort to make the best out of the situation, and it doesn't work. It saved itself a lot of headache.
2013, he finally landed what he thought was his big break. Kevin Garnett, Paul Pierce, and Jason Terry trading away 4 unprotected first-rounders to the Boston Celtics. Unfortunately for the Russian tycoon and Nets fans,
Hold up, wait a minute. So you mean to tell me because of his decision with the Brooklyn Nets is the reason why the Boston Celtics have the current roster now? So does that mean, well, I mean, I can't even apply it to our situation because we didn't get it. We only got 1 pick. Then I can see the trajectory that the Celtics were able to take, unlike the Dallas Mavericks with only getting 1 first-round pick, a older star back compared to Luka Dončić, who was years younger, and then Max Christie.
Fans, the aging KG Pierce combo with Jason Kidd as a rookie coach not only didn't bring a title, they didn't even reach the conference finals. Meanwhile, those picks turned into Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, 2 cornerstones that the Celtics used to become legit contenders and eventual champions. The 2018 pick was also used to acquire Kyrie. The Nets were stuck with no draft capital and spent years at the bottom of the league. A mortgaged future for a very short-term shot at the title, and then they don't even get close to the finals. When the dust settled, Brooklyn was forced into a long rebuild, and Prokhorov eventually sold his stake, leaving Joseph Tsai to pick up the pieces. Ironically, Tsai made the same exact mistake, mortgaging the Nets' future once again in 2021, when
It's got to be something out there in that Brooklyn water, I'm telling you.
he traded away 4 future first-round picks for James Harden and that short-lived Irving, KD, and Harden Big 3. Then there's Matt Ishbia's early tenure in Phoenix, which is another cautionary tale in the making. In 2023, he bought the Suns and WNBA's Mercury for a whopping $4 billion. Big statement, big money, big expectations. 2 months later, he snagged Kevin Durant from the Nets, rendering a stack of 4 unprotected future draft picks, plus young stars in Mikal Bridges and Cam Johnson. Actually, Bridges eventually got Brooklyn 5 more first-round picks when the Knicks traded for him. So that's why
Hey, bro, the fact that people are trading so many picks is crazy.
And that's facts.
I'm not including Tsai in this list. Then Ishbia doubled down by adding Bradley Beal to form a big 3 with Devin Booker and KD. The only caveat, and actually a very big problem, is that Beal's contract that he carried over from the Wizards actually had a no-trade clause. He didn't activate it when getting out of Washington, but his agent has publicly said recently that Beal's not moving anywhere anytime soon, which in turn complicates Suns' position if they wanted to make any moves. Still, on paper, this screamed the instant title contender, but the Suns soon found themselves over the second luxury tax apron.
Hey, Bradley Beal got some type of nerve, man. Hey, how did he get that no trades clause? Drop it in the comments, man. So I heard there was some backroom alley deals going on.
Some first-round picks for the next 7 years, and rumors began going about them quietly shopping Durant at the deadline. That's despite Durant never asking to be traded. Now that's a surefire way to sour your relationship with a 2-time NBA champion. Currently, it's almost a guarantee Durant will look for a way out, which is going to leave Phoenix scrambling to get back draft assets in a desperation trade. Again, while Ishbia's vision was to win immediately, his bold actions potentially messed up the team in the long run. That said, none of these fiascos would exist if not for the Ted Stepien. Stepien's ownership of the Cleveland Cavaliers in the early 80s was so disastrous that the NBA
All right, so we're going back to the 80s. Man, this is where it all started.
had to institute a rule named after him. In one stretch, the Cavs traded away 5 consecutive first-rounders, leaving the team with no high draft assets and little hope for the future. The man fumbled picks that could have turned into James Worthy, Clyde Drexler, and John Stockton. Under Stepien's watch as an owner, the Cavs had gone 66 and 180 with 6 coaches in a 3-year span, including 4 in just 1 season.
Hey, bro, tell me what kind of up that you have to, that they had to create a rule for you because you traded so many picks and the type of players that you just go right through your hands.
1981 to 1982, when the Cavs won just 15 games. Attendance went drastically down, and he even considered renaming the team to the Ohio Cavaliers, or playing in other cities like Cincinnati, Pittsburgh, or even Toronto. His reckless approach was so bad that when he finally sold the team in 1983, the league had a sigh of relief. Decades later, the Stepien rule remains in effect, stopping owners from dealing back-to-back first-rounders. Yet we still see modern owners find loopholes, as the Nets did by sending pick swaps to Boston in consecutive years. years. Stepien might be the ultimate example of new ownership gone wrong, but at least the NBA responded with some formal regulations to keep the future generation from doing quite so much damage. Another more recent example of an owner who tried to do some huge moves right from the
Wait a minute. Wait.
Hey man, hey, so I need y'all right now to rank, did Nico mess up as bad as these other owners? Or did he use this to gauge to make sure if this did go wrong, at least I don't have a rule or regulation made after me?
The start is Tillman Fertitta. He took over the Houston Rockets in 2017 and quickly made his mark by shipping CP3, 2 first-rounders, and 2 pick swaps to Oklahoma City for Russell Westbrook. Why? Well, he called Chris Paul's contract the worst deal he'd ever seen, seemingly overlooking the fact that Westbrook's was even worse. The result was a short-lived experiment that cost the Rockets valuable picks and eventually forced them into a rebuild. Fertitta also botched negotiations with head coach Mike D'Antoni. He offered a deal that was far less appealing than it looked on the surface. D'Antoni left the ship and Houston had a problem. Despite these early mistakes, the Rockets managed to turn things around after trading James Harden in 2021. The franchise received a strong collection of young assets, including a variety of picks and swaps, which then translated into future success we see right now. Essentially, the Harden trade allowed the team to do a textbook rebuild with a promising young core.
Do you think Ime Udoka is one of the reasons for the Houston Rockets being able to turn around their season from the previous seasons and make a legitimate push to be in the situation that they are in, ranked in the Western Conference?
So again, the first year or few were rough, but Fertitta is one of the few who turned it around quickly. And my final example is James Dolan and the Knicks. Dolan took over in 1999 and almost immediately things got weird. One of his earliest misfires was handing Allen Houston a massive 6-year, $100 million contract. Houston had been great, but injuries and age caught up to him fast, turning that deal into a burden. It became so notorious that when the league introduced a luxury tax amnesty clause in 2005, people literally called it the Allen Houston rule, assuming the Knicks would ditch him to save on tax, but they didn't. Instead, they wasted that option on Jerome Williams. Meanwhile, Jeff Van Gundy, Knicks' coach since 1996, left after clashing with the front office. Van Gundy had built a reputation for leading the team to consistent playoff contention, including a trip to the 1999 NBA Finals. But during Dolan's ownership, the Knicks fell off a cliff results-wise. Wait a minute, that sounds really familiar. NBA Finals and then a downfall.
All right, so now he's bringing it all back to the Dallas Mavericks, and I guess he's going to rank it himself. What do you think he will rank the Dallas Mavericks blunder? This one is hard to bear, especially in the immediate aftermath. Man, tough.
Anyways, by Dolan's third season calling the shots, the team was consistently struggling, which was a state they only recovered from in the last couple of years. Dolan interfered with basketball operations, overpaid flawed players, and chased marquee names without any coherent plan. I would say he's definitely in the S tier of the worst owners of all time. Okay, so probably the question is, why do these new owners fail dramatically?
He got Dumont in the S tier.
When you buy a team, you want to make a splash and show your impact. Another part is just lack of experience in the sports business. These guys are usually super successful businessmen who carry that confidence over, and then the reality hits. Just because you manage to make billions of dollars as an entrepreneur doesn't mean you can build a championship team in basketball. Owners like Patrick Dumont or Matt Ishbia seemingly underestimate how trading cornerstones or piling up risky contracts can sabotage team's culture overnight. They believe going all in signals a commitment to winning, but mortgaging endless first-round picks or shipping out the face of the franchise often places the organization on a path for years, maybe even decades of irrelevance. Sometimes, as with Tillman Fertitta, you can pivot by unloading star players for assets that feed a rebuild. Other times, you end up like Prohorov, who was forced to watch the Celtics harvest the fruits of your draft picks while your own team suffers. So, have the new Mavs owners pulled off the biggest train wreck we've ever seen? I would say it's super close. Like I mentioned a few times now, going from the NBA Finals to essentially rebuilding sounds like a worst-case scenario. If Dumont continues down the path of Stepien or Dolan making reckless decisions for a quick fix, then yes, he might even surpass them as the worst owner to ever be in charge of an NBA franchise. But let me know.
All right, I appreciate you for tapping into the video. What is Dumont rank on the worst owners in NBA history? You know, he had him on the S tier, but he said if he continues, that ego cometh before the fall. Patrick Dumont had too much ego. Luka Dončić had a lot of ego, and they were bumping heads. I felt it was a situation to one of us have to leave. It's either going to be you or it's going to be me. And with Dumont being the owner, he made sure that it was Luka Dončić who had to leave. He was under the impression that he was bigger than Luka Dončić, and Luka Dončić was probably under the impression that he was bigger than Patrick Dumont. You just got here. I've been able to lead this team before you, and I'll be able to lead them after you. Man, all right, but that's enough of me. Make sure you stick around and check out the next video where we will be dropping some straight hot fire. Make sure you stay in the loop. That way, when you come to those conversations with the guys, or for some of y'all ladies with the gals, and y'all talking sports, you can have that top information and the latest news, rumors, NBA tea, and hot buzz. That being said, we out. Holla.
And that's facts.